What's up, and welcome to the channel. J Street Moto. First off, thanks for taking the time out of your day to watch this video. This is going to be day 2 of a 15-day trip that me and my 2 friends took on the motorcycles from the Huntersville, North Carolina area to the Pacific Ocean and then back. All in, we did a little over 7,000 miles in 12 and a half days of riding. We spent a couple of days in California touring some vineyards and eating some good food and checking out some distilleries. If you watched the first episode, day 1, thanks for doing that, but you've got a little background on kind of this trip and what our plan was and how we planned those trips. So for this video, I'm going to focus more on just, kind of day 2. So we started out this day. Our original intention was to leave St. Louis, Missouri on Route 66. We opted to change our plans a little bit, mainly due to weather. On day 2, when we woke up, we found that there was a pretty big storm cell just to the south and west of us, basically where we were going to be riding on Route 66 to head down through the rest of Missouri and into Oklahoma, where we were going to stay for the night. So instead, when we got up and we were eating breakfast, we looked at the weather like we always did and opted to reroute and go to Kansas City instead, and then sort of shoot southwest and end up in Oklahoma on Route 66 for the end of day 2. Right now, what's happening is I had to pull over so that I could put my gloves on. I left them on the bike and not on my hands when we were leaving our gas stop. But this does give you a chance to see how my bike's loaded out. Like I mentioned in the day 1 video, you can see I've got just a bag behind me on the passenger seat strapped to my sissy bar with in this case, my full helmet is on top of it, and in between the helmet and the bag is my leather pants for when it gets cold. So in any case, we're on our way to Kansas City, and hope you enjoy some of the video. So I've got to say it, riding through the Midwest, especially like Missouri, Kansas, Oklahoma, the northern part of Texas, it can be pretty boring, for lack of a better word. Every time we've been through there, and David and I have done it a couple of times, Juan's done parts of this area a couple of times. It is it literally is those days where we just wake up and are like, all right, we're going to get as many miles under our belt as we can, as quickly as we can, because there's just not a lot to see. Now, with that said, some of the best food I've eaten on this trip happened in this part of the country. I mean, the food there is amazing, and the people there are awesome too. There you can see David. He's now in the middle. I wanted to get some video of him and Juan together. And you can kind of see how David's bike's packed out at this point. That would change later in the trip. But so yeah, on this day, we were literally just trying to get around a storm and get down to where we were stopping for the night as quickly as possible. That reroute did mean that we ended up, I think, riding on this day right around 737 miles, so call it 740, to get to where we were going. Now, while this is a pretty boring part of the country to ride through, I will say this about it. I'm an old Navy guy, and so I know what it's like to be out in the middle of the ocean and you don't see anything except the horizon. The only place I've ever experienced that on land is in this part of our country, between Kansas and Oklahoma especially. There are places out there that are so remote and just so, I mean, you're in the middle of nowhere. There is nothing except for the horizon as far as you can see. It is kind of a cool feeling. So, now I think I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking about how we've talked about how we manage the ride from a ride perspective. We haven't talked about the logistics of some of these trips. So let's talk about that. I'll tell you how kind of we do it. If you do it differently, I'd love to hear what you do. I know I've talked to a couple guys and they do it a lot different than we do. So I'd be interested to hear. Leave it in the comments, and I'd love to hear what y'all do. But here's how kind of we do it. So we're riding. We know kind of where we're going to try and get to for that day. And what I mean by that is, what city are we attempting to make it to? Where are we going to go before we stop for the night? Now, usually around lunchtime, when we're stopping to eat, and I should talk about food too. We have a general rule when we take these long distance trips. The rule that we follow is we don't eat any chain or commercial restaurants. So what I mean by that is, it's not something that's local and sort of locally owned and mom and pop owned and a standalone kind of joint. We don't eat there. So that makes for interesting conversations, because normally the way we find lunch is we time our gas stops so that we're stopping around time for us to eat. And usually we'll ask someone that's there getting gas, or the gas station attendant, the person working inside, hey, where's a good place to eat around here that's local? And we've had some fantastic recommendations from people, and you end up in these spots where you'd never end up. But that's how kind of we eat on these trips. So I think I might have mentioned that day one, so if I've doubled it up, sorry. But when we stop for lunch, we kind of have a good feel for how our pace is going that day and how many miles we have left, how many hours we have left to do. We're looking at the weather to see if there's going to be any issues that slow us down between where we're at, where we're trying to get between lunch and when we stop for the day. So usually at lunchtime, we have a good feel whether we're going to make the city or not. And then what we do is we spend some time at lunch finding where we're going to stay at that city. Normally, the way we find it is we first look for a place to eat dinner. And then we try to find a hotel that is preferably within walking distance of where we're wanting to eat that night, based on, how we're feeling at lunchtime. So we that's kind of how we do it. And then we'll call and make a reservation and go ahead and have the room set up. So now we're kind of committed to getting there that day. I know some people that that when they take a trip like this, they basically book their hotel reservations every day for the entire time they're going to be on their trip. One of the reasons we don't do that is because we found that sometimes, you're going to not be able to make it as far as you think you're going to be able to make it. One thing or another happens on the trip. Maybe you have some mechanical difficulties. You have something that ends up slowing you down, whether it's weather and you have to get off the bike and take the time to put your rain gear on. For any of you that ride, you understand what I'm saying, that it always takes you longer than what you think it's going to take you to do something. So that's why we choose not to do that, because there's some days where you just wake up and go, you know what, or at lunchtime, you're just like, man, this day's killing me. I don't want to go as far as we were planning on going. Let's add some miles to tomorrow instead, and let's cut today a little shorter. And that happens from time to time. So that's why we do it the way that we do it. We're right now going through Kansas City. You're going to see two different angles of that. If you haven't figured it out yet, the cooler filter camera, that's the way I'll word it, is David's. That's the one he's running on his bike, and when it looks a little warmer in terms of the video, that's my camera. I should also talk a second about how we have the cameras mounted. So David and I both have things that mount the camera to our handlebars. So it basically stays on the bike all the time, and it's a constant reminder to us of, hey, press record. So just food for thought. So I'm trying something a little different with the video editing on day 2. For those of you watching this because you're thinking about, putting together videos and putting them on YouTube, I am not the best guy to, get advice from, but I will share my garden pains with you. So, in this case, right now what I'm doing is I'm trying with different formats, a combination of music with the writing and me talking so that you don't listen to me drone on and on about whatever topic I want to speak on while we're riding. You can listen to some music and just enjoy the scenery, or you can mute the whole thing and just watch the video. For time constraints, most of the video is being run at 2 times speed. Now that's mainly because I've got a target window in my head of what I kind of want to have for a total video length on YouTube, and I've got a lot of videos from each day to squeeze into that link. or to that length. So I speed up the video in order to try and make that happen. My ideal target is somewhere around 21, 22 minutes to down to like 15, 16 minutes. Because I feel like, I know when I'm watching videos on YouTube, I don't, if I see something that's, hour and a half, 2 hours long, unless it's an installation video that I need to watch for a part on my bike, probably not spending all that time watching that, you know what I mean, on any given day. I tend to focus on more of the shorter videos that kind of get me the information that I want. This is a little view of what I was talking about, where when you're riding out some of these places, literally all you see is the horizon. I have to say that if you've never gotten out on the road and just gone to completely foreign places to you in our country, you're totally missing out. There's not a part of this nation that I've ridden through that isn't just absolutely beautiful on its own. I know everybody has different things that they like, different things they appreciate, but in my case, I've never gone through a place in the U.S. that I just thought, wow, this is ugly. There's always something you can find about it that's just gorgeous. In this case, in my opinion, it's the horizon and the sky. You don't see things like that where we live on the East Coast. So getting out where you can just is so liberating. So yeah, right now what I'm doing is trying to figure out whether I like a combination of voice and music, or just music. If you want to go back and look at some of my other videos, like the Iron Butt Challenge that the three of us did, that one is almost 100% music. I talked at the beginning of it, talked at the end, but the rest of it is just a soundtrack with the writing. If you feel like watching that, go watch it, check it out. I'd like input, so if you feel like commenting and telling me kind of what format you like, compare this one to day one and tell me what you'd like to see change, what you'd like to see different. At this point, we've blown through Kansas City. We are getting pretty close to where we're going to be stopping for the night. We're in a part of the country where it's not uncommon to see windmills, power generating windmills. On that note, I wish it was one of those moments on our 2020 trip when we went to California the first time. David and I were stopped in Nebraska, Ocala, Nebraska to be exact, because of some incredibly difficult wind conditions. And we're sitting in a convenience store, and all of a sudden, in this little podunk town, and all of a sudden we see a tractor trailer roll by, and it's pulling this thing that is like the length of a football field down the road. I mean, it was so long they had multiple sets of wheels strapped to it. It didn't even sit on a flatbed. It was just on all these wheels rolling down the road. And it's a single blade of one of these windmills. I couldn't believe how massive the thing was, but it certainly gave me a different perspective as I'm riding through this part of the country and seeing them turning. Gave me a way different perspective on just the sheer scale of those things and how high they are up in the air. But yeah, little tip, those do not turn if the wind is blowing over a certain speed. And I don't want to quote the wrong speed, so go look it up. But that's a good indicator for you when you're riding if it's too windy for you to be on the bike. so this is the end of day 2. We ended up eating at this place called Lucille's, which is it's a landmark on Route 66 in Oklahoma. Um, Here's some pictures from the inside, the original cafe. Food was fantastic, as you would expect. But I was so focused. It was kind of funny. I was so focused while I was trying to get us to the restaurant that had been recommended that I completely missed the fact that we had been riding on Route 66 for about, I don't know, 3 or 4 miles. So when we get there, everybody's like, "Hey, were you taping that? We were on Route 66. There's Lucille's. Highly recommended if you're ever out there. Eat there. Look it up. It's right on Route 66. It's on the historic route." I was like, "Oh my God, I can't believe that I missed it," because I was so focused on trying to get us where we were trying to go at the end of what had been a pretty long day. So here is some riding on Route 66. We actually made it to the road we wanted to be on for day 2, even though it was at the end of day 2. Sometimes that's how it goes, guys. You're going to have a plan, and even though the plan is really good, really thought out, and you're doing everything you can to execute it, changes happen, and you end up not being able to do what you thought you were going to be able to do. So this is us riding some of Route 66 in Oklahoma. Day 3, we spend a lot of time going to different things that we had, different points of interest on Route 66 that we had been, that we had either heard from people or looked up ourselves or whatever. So the day 3 video is going to be us doing a lot of what I'll call touristy stuff. No one's going to go find the biggest ball of yarn, but it's going to be those kinds of things. We checked out a lot of cool spots. Overall, day 2 was a really, really good day. We couldn't really complain about it. The weather was pleasant. We did successfully avoid the rain. This is the first time on this trip that we rerouted in order to avoid bad weather. And I think I'm right in saying it is the only time on this trip where we made the decision to reroute and successfully avoided the weather. So just keep that in mind. By the way, guys, little shameless plug. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell. We are still running the Susan G. Komen fundraiser for breast cancer. If you'd like to help out and donate to that, the link to it will be in the description of this video, as well as I'll put the link in the comments in this video. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Ride safe.